So by now I probably put the fear of hellfire and brimstone in you after everything we've talked about. But here's the thing is now we're going to dive into the actual importance of Google Analytics, right? Now we're going to start optimizing your flow, optimizing how your customers are experiencing this. I'm also going to give you some additional tools as we go down through some of these additional bonus modules. But right now, what I really wanted to stress the importance of, and I talked about it in the last lessons as well, was the importance of consistency. Okay. Google Analytics, again, is going to provide you with a whole bunch of data, right? There is some reporting errors. If you go to connecting, right, from what is showing up in your Google Ads accounts to what's showing up in your Google Analytics account, there might be a little bit of slight differences, okay? But it's not about finding the true gospel in the numbers. And I know that's kind of a weird topic, especially for me, because that's why I do what I do, right? I really like the ability to see the data and be able to validate it. But Google Analytics is the most important tool, and the most important rule to really remember as you're going through and optimizing is understanding how the impact and the flow of things is, right? Just because it's not accurate doesn't mean it's not valuable. And whenever I say it's not accurate, it's just there's a lot of different parameters, just as far as if a conversion is rolled in yet, because of it was reporting 18 hours ago, the model is different. There's a lot of different variations in there, but it's about maintaining that consistency and showing as you go through, okay, hey, I made this change. I'm using the exact same report. I'm using the exact same parameters, and we saw a slight increase of 3%, right? It's not about looking at the numbers and saying, oh, I'm only registering $30,000 in spend within Google Ads, but I'm registering $35,000 in return in Google Analytics. Now, you're always going to see a little bit of variation just because of how the codes are placed, what is reporting, the attribution models, as we were talking about, they may be separate. Maybe you're using a data-driven within Google Ads, maybe you're using last click within Analytics. There is going to be these small differences, but that's where the importance of consistency really falls in, right? It's about making a change and assessing how the impact was. Did I see an increase in that report, or did I see a decrease in that report? Okay. The other thing to look at in this as well is understanding the impact that your Google Ads and your entire Google initiative, whether or not you're talking about display, YouTube, shopping, has the impact on your Google organic presence. Okay. People see Google Analytics as a validation tool, but people forget that Google search is a validation tool as well, right? If I'm seeing a particular product and I go to Google search and I can't find you, or I have to scroll all the way down to the page to find you at the bottom of the organic nature, right? You have a little bit of detraction in your overall reputation or the trust in your product. Or hell, what happens if I can't find you at all, right? That has a huge impact on it, right? So that's why a lot of people, and there's even studies that they've done, and I think it varies a little bit between my clients. I have some that are 40%. Google actually did a study that said people actually miss out on 89% of their organic traffic if they aren't running paid PPC ads. And again, that kind of varies according to what business model is, and they did it according to a mathematical formula rather than data. From what I've seen in actually hardcore data, most of my clients are missing out on about 45, as high as 60% of what their organic potential is by not understanding that. But the only way you can really track that is through Google Analytics. Okay, so utilizing these reports and utilizing a lot of what I'm going to show you in the next upcoming screen recordings, and how to really utilize the reports to understand just the growth and the impact or the decrease across these models is really what this next section is about, right? The attribution modeling reports and how to use them, even how to use some of the conversion reports, the sales funnels, where actually your top converting paths. We're diving more into a lot of these reports that when you compare them together, they may have differing metrics, right? But it's not about that. It's not about comparing your attribution report on a last click compared to what it is on a linear model, because they're going to be different because they're assessing different impacts or different data matters. But what it is about, it's about picking those same reports, maintaining that consistency, and showing whether or not you saw an increase or you saw a decrease, and then making an educated decision within your Google Ads account on how to adjust your budget in order to duplicate that and replicate the performance that you have, right? Again, if you can't duplicate it, if you can't replicate the success, then it doesn't mean anything. It's just about the one-hit wonders. There's many of those bands you've probably seen out there that they've put out a single, but what happens whenever they go out on live tour or something like that, right? This is your assessment, okay? This is your basically same scenario, right? You may have been able to sell one product, but can you sell two? Can you sell 1,000? Can you sell 1,000,000? Right? And that's what I'm honestly trying to drive you to. That's what the entire course has been assessed. It's about increasing your conversions, decreasing your cost, and improving your ROI. And that's what these reports and that's what these next segments are going to go through, is how you can actually utilize these reports to establish baselines, understand your growth or your decreases, and making sure that you can replicate them by understanding truly what the data is telling you. It's not about what you think. It's not about how your neighbor thinks or even how your wife's interaction, your kids' interaction. I've had so many customers tell me, well, I know what I do on Google, but there's 350 million people in the United States. Do you think that 350 million people are going to replicate the exact same actions? Well, Google Analytics is going to tell you that, okay? And that's why I'm going to tell you the most important process in this entire course is maintaining that consistency, okay? It's about maintaining consistency in your builds, your setup, your structure of all your accounts, and the same thing applies to your Google Analytics. If you can't repeat and you can't identify what you did successfully, then you can't replicate it and you're never going to grow and scale. And what does that mean to you? Realistically, it means decreased ROI. And that's not the point of the course. That's not the point of the entire process that I'm trying to help you repeat and elevate. So let's make sure that we follow these next screen recordings, we take into account, and we also do what I've repeated multiple times. Go back and review the material. Go back and make sure that you can replicate it, and go back and make sure that you understand every single lesson, and this one's just as important. So let's move on to the screen recording so I can walk you through how we can start optimizing, improving your process, and just make it a more stable process so we can scale it to the moon.